Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Malice in the Mitten. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my bestie, Christine Mulligan. Hey, Christine.
Hey, Trace. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming back. What are you going to get us into tonight?
All right, well, today's episode comes to us from a listener who is also a friend of ours. And what I'm about to tell you is a 95-year-old unsolved murder of not only one person, but of an entire family slaughtered with an axe in Detroit, Michigan. So, to you, Tracy Preco, I say thank you. Thank you for sharing this story with me and our listeners. Because to you, this isn't just an interesting unsolved murder. Oh no, it runs much deeper than that, as this is a part of your bloodline. So with that being said, let's get into it. This is Season 2, Episode 3, The St.Aubin Ave Massacre of Benjamino Evangelista. Let's start with a little history on Detroit, Michigan. Per Wikipedia, Paleo-Indians inhabited areas near Detroit as early as 11,000 years ago, including the culture referred to as the Mound Builders. Detroit is the most populous city in Michigan. It is the largest U.S. city on the United States-Canada border and the seat of government of Wayne County. During the late 19th and early 20th century, it became an important industrial hub at the center of the Great Lakes region. Detroit is best known as the center of the U.S. automotive industry and the big three auto manufacturers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, which are all headquartered in Metro Detroit. In 1903, Henry Ford founded the Ford Motor Company. Ford's manufacturing and automotive pioneers, William C. Durant, Horace and John Dodge, James and William Packard, and Walter Chrysler. These men established Detroit's status in the early 20th century as the world's automotive capital. In June of 1963, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. gave a major speech as part of the Civil Rights March in Detroit that foreshadowed his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C. Detroit's diverse culture has had both local and international influence, particularly in music, with the city giving rise to the genres of Motown and techno and playing an important role in the development of jazz, hip-hop, rock, and punk. I could go on and on about Detroit, but I need to get on with the episode.
But wait, what about disco? Wasn't disco like in Detroit too? Or was that just New York?
I think it was more New York, right? What was it? Studio 56? Studio 57?
54. Jeez.
It was in the 50s.
But wait, Motown. Motown was Detroit.
Yeah, I said Motown. Genres of Motown and techno.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's all right. So, Benjamino Evangelista was born in Italy on June 3rd, 1886. It was in 1904, at the age of 19, that he immigrated to the United States, landing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with his brother Antonio. Shortly after immigrating to the United States, Benjamino Americanized his name to Benny Evangelist, like many immigrants did. Benny was a trained carpenter, and soon he was working in the real estate business in Philadelphia. After a handful of years, Benny started to claim that he was receiving visions from God. It wasn't long before his brother Antonio disowned Benny and all of his proclamations. Antonio sent Benny away to work in York, Pennsylvania, where he began working on the railroad with a construction crew. It is in York, Pennsylvania, that Benny met Aurelius Berlioz, and it is with Aurelius that he and Benny became involved in a religious cult. They both believed that they possessed the power of magic and were capable of casting spells.
Okay, it's getting interesting. But fun fact, York, PA was also the original, because our company has been expanded several times. But originally, as the original company where I met you, our headquarters were in York, PA. Did you know that?
That's a round robin.
I know. All right, I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
I love it. Okay. So Benny began documenting his visions and beliefs, which turned into a 4-volume book that he titled, quote, The Oldest History of the World, Discovered by the Occult Science in Detroit, Michigan. Benny declared himself as a divine prophet, spiritual leader, and a mystical healer.
Oh my God, me and Benny have so much in common.
Right?
Are we twins? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. In 1919, Aurelius was committed to an asylum for the criminally insane after taking an axe to his 2 children. In 1923, he escaped the asylum and was never heard from or seen again.
Okay, so I can take that as a good omen that you're not going to bring up baby killing for the rest of the story. Again, we're talking about the baby killing trait.
And again, I'm not going to promise.
Oh, God! All right, but we're not going to hear about the axing of the 2 children, right?
Not those 2 children.
Oh, my God. All right, fine, whatever. Tell me the damn story. This is getting hurt again.
I'm going on with the damn story. Okay, here we go. Shortly after Aurelius murdered his children, Benny left York, PA, and relocated his family to Detroit, Michigan. He had purchased a home at 3587 St.Aubin Avenue. Benny was dealing in real estate, all while continuing his religious cult-like beliefs. Benny turned his basement into something of a shrine made of chicken wire and wood. He created 10 papier-mâché figures, which he referred to as deities. 9 of the figures were in the image of man, which were to represent planets, and the other one was a giant glowing eye that was positioned smack dab in the middle of the figurines, representing the sun. Outside of the home, Benny made and displayed a sign that read, quote, Great Celestial Planet Exhibition. He also advertised potions and psychic readings. Each reading came at a price, though, of $10. And in today's money, that would run a paying customer about $125 a pop. It didn't take long before Benny was making a lot of money with his readings, potions, and healings. He had a pretty decent number of followers. His paying customers were encouraged to interact with the papier-mâché figurines in his basement. But here's the catch. Benny's spells and hexes would only work if the customers paid the $10. On July 4th, 1929, Vincent Elios, a real estate dealer and business associate of Benny's, stopped to see him at approximately 10 a.m. to speak with him regarding a real estate deal. But no one was answering his knock at the door. Finally, after waiting a few minutes, Vincent decided to open the door and enter the home. Since Benny's office was down in that basement, that is where he was headed. He did see Benny sitting at his desk, but something was seriously wrong. Benny was sitting in his chair, dressed in a suit, arms crossed, but his head was on the floor by his feet. You heard that correctly. Benny had been beheaded.
I don't understand. All of the crazy things and him making the people, conning them, snake oil salesman, future teller, okay. But then I'm confused, Trace.
Okay, so
how did we get from him sitting there being a hoaxer to now all of a sudden he's beheaded?
I'm going to get there.
What am I missing? Oh, okay. I feel like that was a lot.
It was a lot. So remember, he's kind of got, this is like a side gig, right? The hexes, the potions, the readings, the whole 9 yards. But he's a real estate man. Like, he's selling homes, he's doing all that kind of stuff. So that's where, I mean, he's making a ton of money doing both.
Okay. All right. So that's where we were going. So we were saying that he was a snake oil salesman and he was conning these people out of $10. And then his dealer friend, his business associate, came in and found him beheaded. All right, so now I'm following. Okay. I just got a little lost in the weeds there.
Sorry about that. Okay, all right, here we go. Surrounding Benny's head were framed death portraits of Benny's son who had died a few years prior. So let's talk about what in the heck a death portrait is for just a minute. Post-mortem photography was a thing back in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Families who were grieving the loss of their loved ones would pose with their dead. I've seen pictures like this in books, and it has always struck me as super creepy and super eerie. But when you have lost a loved one, the loss and grief that a person is experiencing can make people do very strange things. But to them at the time, it probably feels like the right thing to do. Also seen was furniture that was in complete disarray, and scattered about the disarrayed furniture were pages from Benny's book.
What book?
The oldest history of the world book, you know, the one that he had written, the 4-volume book. right? All about the occult science.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That was right before you got into all the other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so where was he? Okay, Benny's book. All right, so after discovering the headless body of Benny, Elios ran out of the house and made his way to the police to tell them what he had seen. When the police arrived to investigate, they saw exactly what Elios had described. In the mess of the furniture and strewn about papers, they also saw a wig and a beard lying on the ground. Now, it was suspected that Benny wore the wig and beard during his readings for his paying customers. But for me, I'm thinking that this could have been a disguise of the person who had murdered Benny. But that's purely speculation on my part, but I think it makes sense.
Oh, what are you doing? My job now, Trace?
Oh,
Pulling out theories out of your butt?
Well, I'm learning from you. Yeah.
All right. So what happened next?
Okay, as patrolmen Lawrence and Costage, who had then headed upstairs to check on the rest of the Evangelist family, they noticed bloody footprints in the kitchen leading up the stairs to the mother's bedroom, as well as a bloody fingerprint and thumbprint on the latch of the front door. Once upstairs, they entered the bedroom of which Benny's wife was found in bed. The horrors didn't end down in the basement. Santina, Benny's wife, was in bed, still holding their 18-month-old son. Santina was nearly decapitated, and the toddler's head was bashed in.
Oh my God, Tracy!
I know, it's so brutal. It's so brutal. And don't forget, the theory is that this was all committed with an axe.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. In the opposite bedroom, which was connected to the mother's room, were the other 3 children. 2 of the kids were found in their twin beds. The third was found lying on the floor. All 3 of them, like the toddler, had their heads bashed in, and one of the children had an arm that was practically cut off from her body.
Oh my goodness. So am I getting ahead of myself? Or are we hearing about the guy that you said we weren't going to hear or see again?
You know what?
That's why they come back for a family visit.
It's a theory. It's the theory, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
All right. Needless to say, it wasn't long before the home on Aubin Avenue was full of police, reporters, and very nosy neighbors. They were not only surrounding the home, many just walked right into the home and tramped all through the crime scene. Talk about contamination and loss of evidence. No wonder these murders have never been solved.
Okay, but we're also talking about, the 1920s or something you said?
1929. Yep.
So I'm pretty sure those are the times where we learned about contamination and loss of evidence.
Right.
And plus, even back then, everybody had muddy shoes. You weren't gonna get many leads on mud trackings or blood prints because they didn't even have Band-Aids and shit.
They just had cloth. They would tear it and wrap it around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got to take into account that contamination and loss of evidence is irrelevant. That's where we learned that from.
Exactly. It was surmised that the murders occurred on July 3rd between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. Now, oddly enough, this is the time frame which Benny would proclaim he had his psychic visions. Also, according to the Detroit Free Press, the night before the murders, Benny made a call to a watchman of a home that was to be torn down. He mentioned that he had paid for all the lumber that could be salvaged. Benny mentioned that he had arranged for the wood to be picked up and it was to be delivered to his home the following day. Benny also said that he would be on site to meet the truck driver the next morning to pay for the delivery. Benny never showed, and we all know why he was a no-show.
Okay, so that's what prompted is that what prompted his associate to come to his office?
That's a thought I had as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't show up to something for the business, so his business associate came over to check on him. And then that's how they found the horror.
The horror.
All right.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Here's what I find interesting. Benny should have had a large amount of money on hand to pay for the lumber. But when the police searched the home, they never found the money. Police saw the money as a motive. However, there was not any documentation found of the delivery company, so no suspects could be developed from that. Is it possible that the murder was just some rando who heard about Benny and all the money he had and planned an axe-wielding attack on him and his family? So exactly what you were just saying.
Yeah, well, also, what was his deal with the guy that we're never supposed to see or hear about again that hurt his 2 children and went into an asylum? Aurelius, is that what that was his name?
Aurelius, yep.
Okay, Aurelius. What was his connection again with Benny?
The two of them met each other when Benny was sent to York, PA to work on the railroad. That's how the two of them met. And then the two of them both had these, crazy cult-like religious beliefs.
Okay,
that was their...
Here's the thing. They both, touted themselves as being black magic occultists, kind of, sort of. Not in those exact words, but that's what I'm feeling like you're getting to. Our day equivalent to, a.k.a. losing their soul bit by bit, a.k.a. maybe he was jealous and knew that Benny was going to have all this money because he was successful in his other career while at the same time still being a snake oil salesman and giving out readings. Maybe he came and robbed him and killed him on purpose.
Yeah, because he's like, Maybe they had a pact. I'm going to kill my kids with an axe. You're going to kill your family with an axe. Who knows? They're crazy in their religious minds.
Yeah,
I don't know. It can get so twisted. Yeah. During the family's funeral, police were hoping that they make it lucky enough to find the murderer, but there were hundreds of people who attended. Those hopes were quickly crushed. Now,
was there anybody out of the ordinary, though? I mean, if there were hundreds of people that turned up for the funeral, it was probably the whole town, because again, we're talking about the 1920s. People lived in clusters. I'm not even going to get into that because we won't even ever find that out. If there was anybody that was not known by the masses.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because everyone knew, Sally Joe lived 2 clicks down there and Billy Bob lived 3 clicks down there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Everybody knew that crap. So there was nobody from out of town, quote unquote.
From what I read, there was nothing that they could develop out of that. Nothing. So their hopes of possibly seeing someone that didn't fit in, that wasn't a part of the community, that just didn't happen.
Yeah, it really is amazing how far detective work has come. Because back in those days, how would you ever know?
Right.
Especially out-of-towners, as they used to say. Because they would, just kind of pass through, literally pass through, and nobody even knew their name unless they befriended somebody.
Right.
So, yeah, I get it.
Right. And so if we think about it, maybe this Aurelius guy got out and got to Benny and, who knows, maybe they had a meeting. Maybe he just showed up. Maybe he was wearing the wig. Maybe he was wearing the beard. Who knows what happened? Because there was clearly a scuffle down there in that basement. And then he could have just, taken right off, gone, got all the money. Yeah. He's out.
Crazy.
Yeah. Initially, police thought that Benny and his family could have been killed by, quote, the Black Hand. Now, per Wikipedia, because I didn't know what the heck that meant. So the Black Hand was also known as the Mano Nera, which was a type of extortion practiced by Italian immigrant gangsters of the Camorra, which is an Italian mafia-type criminal organizational society that originated in the region of Campania. It is one of the oldest and largest criminal organizations in Italy, dating back to the 17th century. Along with the mafia, which is the Sicilian Mafia, or Cosa Nostra, which is criminal society originating on the island of Sicily and dates back to the 19th century, especially in the United States, Italian-American ghettos and neighborhoods. The Black Hand is a criminal enterprise composed of mainly Sicilian immigrants. That being said, many Sicilians dispute its existence and object to the negative ethnic stereotype. However, at the time of the massacre, the Black Hand was a thing of the past.
I am familiar when people say, yeah, by the Black Hand. I know that saying, and I'm born a century later. Like in The Godfather, you know how they always show the black glove? That's to denote Cosa Nostra.
I've seen that movie a ton, and I don't remember that.
The black glove.
Girl.
Is that what I'm thinking of?
Must be.
But I know, from my memory, granted, it's been a long time ago, but from my memory, the black glove, that always was indicative of the Cosa Nostra. The Dons always wore black leather gloves. And it was a thing, it was a whole thing. Why did they wear the black leather gloves? Because they don't want to get their fingerprints on anything. But then again, maybe it's because I was a kid of the 80s and that was a thing we made up. I don't know. Maybe we made that up. I don't know.
I don't don't know, but you had me going there.
When you just said it, I'm like, yeah, the black hand.
You're like, I got it.
It was the Godfather, like not in the movie per se, but like on posters and stuff. Isn't there like a black gloved hand?
There is, because I saw pictures of it when I was doing research for the show.
Yeah, see?
See? You one-upped me.
Not that messed up.
No,
my
girl.
Memory, not so bueno. But my long-term memory is pretty good.
Is that a sign of Alzheimer's?
Half-timers. I'm halfway there.
Half-timers. I love it. Okay.
It's not all the way there. It's not Alzheimer's. It's half-timers.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what happens when you're in menopause. You get half-timers.
I'm with you. I'm there. Okay. All right. So let's talk about who the police had as suspects. So one person of interest was Umberto Tecchio. He, along with Angelo De Bolle, had stopped to make his final payment to Benny for the home he had sold to him. The two men were brought to the police station and questioned after Detective Lieutenant John Whitman and Detective Charles Searle and Earl Switzer had found a short axe in the suspect's barn, along with a keen-edged banana knife and a pair of shoes or boots, which looked as if they had just been washed. Stains were found on the axe, and testing would occur to determine if this was blood or rust. Now, I didn't find what the results of that test were. I don't know what they were.
They tell you that there was testing that occurred, but they don't give you the results. Well, did they go any further with these guys? Because that would tell you if the results came back.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little something more about that.
All
right. It was known that Tecchio had stabbed his brother-in-law to death 3 months prior. However, he was never incarcerated. He was never incarcerated for it. Like, really? Both men denied involvement, and due to the lack of evidence, they were released. A few years later, Tecchio had died, and this was when a paperboy came forward to the police that he had seen Tecchio outside of the Evangelist home early in the morning after the murders. But at this point, there just wasn't enough evidence, and too much time had gone by. Now, if you're wondering if Tecchio's fingerprints were compared to the bloody fingerprints at the scene, the only answer I can give you is, I have no idea. I could not find any details about that.
But I don't know, did we have fingerprint technology back in the day?
I don't know what the heck
they know that all fingerprints were different?
I would imagine they did have fingerprinting. I don't know. I was thinking the same thing, like, how would they do that? How would they lift that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But
maybe that's something we should know since we're talking about all these murders. I'll look it up.
Please do some homework for me. All right. Another suspect is an unnamed cult member. Now, this former member confessed to the murders. He claimed he had been scammed by Benny, and this person was quite ill and paid Benny basically all his life savings in hopes of a cure from Benny. Clearly, the psychic consults were a bust. Police did look into the man's bank records and were able to confirm that all of this man's money was gone. However, the man ended up recanting his confession. The police felt that this man just had a hatred towards Benny from scamming him. Now, I say that sounds like a strong motive.
All right, well, thanks to the technology of the phones we carry in our hands nowadays. 1902 in the United States, we started fingerprinting.
Oh, all right. See?
So, yeah, they did have fingerprints back then, but they weren't checking them, apparently.
Yeah, they totally screwed it up.
Yeah.
So another suspect was Aurelius Angelina. So here we go. Yep, that's right. The old friend who escaped the asylum for the criminally insane. Now, if you remember at the top of the show, Aurelius killed his 2 children with an axe. But unfortunately, the police didn't have any evidence to support their suspicion. But I, like you, Christine.
Except for the fact that he has a hankering for smashing kids in the head.
Yeah, with an axe.
Ugh. I would like to believe there's not that many human beings at one time roaming the earth that like to do those kind of things.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with it was Aurelius.
That's my bet too.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So 3 years after the massacre, another suspect would emerge, a man by the name of Robert Harris. He was also a cult leader. When police found the body of James Smith, on November 20th, 1932, tied to an altar with a knife plunged into his heart. Robert confessed to the murder and said that James was in on his own murder as he was his own sacrifice. However, his autopsy revealed that James also suffered head trauma prior to being stabbed. So Robert's claim of the willing sacrifice did not hold water. Robert was sent to prison for murdering James, and while incarcerated, he confessed his plans of more murders. Among those confessions were the murders of Benny Evangelist and his family. Police did investigate this claim, but they came up empty-handed. Police also believe that Robert was not even in Detroit at the time of the massacre.
Why would he cop to them then? Because he was just a cult leader that wanted some clout, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Because in the 20s and 30s, the papers were all the rage. To get into the papers, you were big time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Benny had been involved in several lawsuits related to some real estate transactions, and perhaps this could have been a motive. If you remove the religious fanaticism, Benny had a good reputation. The only black mark was that Benny was arrested in 1923, now get this, when he was charged with a plumbing ordinance violation. Can you imagine being arrested for that?
Well, back in those days,
Yeah.
you did the wrong plumbing for the wrong person and they had enough power and they were offended enough, I would imagine. You would go to the clink for that.
Off to the clinker. Well, you know what? I remember reading, do you ever read some of those old laws? Like, if you put any ice cream in the back of your pocket, that's enough to get you arrested. Like, stupid shit.
Exactly. That's what I mean. But not for nothing. There's is a pretty good string to the theory that maybe Benny was a little bit connected. And he was a little bit of a fruitcake as far as they were concerned for his cult behaviors. But I mean, this kind of crap is the kind of things of a more organized criminal activity.
Yeah.
I mean, it does kind of read that way.
Yeah, it sure does.
Like, it almost feels to me like it was, I mean, I know it wasn't because you did the research and you wrote the story. Even in your research, it feels like the Cosa Nostra was removed from some of these stories.
Yeah.
Like, that might have been why this went so undone.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Because back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, that was the big time, organized crime time, wasn't it?
Sure was.
That was, oh my God, I can't even think of, Capone.
Yeah.
That was the Capone era, wasn't it?
It sure was in Chicago. Absolutely.
Yeah. Detroit's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah.
From Chicago,
It's right across the pond.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the time of the Evangelist massacre, Benny was 44 years old. Santina, his wife, was 38 years old. Their daughter, Angeline, was 7. Margaret was 5. And Mario was just 18 months old. The home, I know, it's just so awful. The home on 3587 St.Aubin Avenue has been torn down, and all that remains to this day is a vacant lot. And the local residents believe that the land is haunted by Benny's headless ghost.
Yeah, I don't know if you can have a massacre like that and then build anything on it ever again.
Yeah, you can't. I'm thinking, that's just sacred. Leave it alone.
I feel like the energy is no bueno.
Yeah, especially, yeah, it's no bueno for sure.
No bueno.
Yeah. So that's the story of the St. Aubin Avenue Massacre. And there are actually, I want to research a couple more stories because on the same avenue, there were 2 other awful murders. So look for those to come because I'm going to get into those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, but now I got to ask. I want to know what's the connection. Where's the bloodline connection to Tracy Precchio?
It is her. So it's Preco, Tracy Preco. It's I don't know. In fact, I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at my messages. But maybe she is related to Benny's brother. Maybe she comes from that bloodline. Because remember, he immigrated to Philadelphia with his brother.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And his brother disowned him or something, right?
Yeah, he's like, you're tripping out. You're freaking out on this religious business. You're having visions. And so his brother's like, no. I don't want to hear that. You got to go over there.
Okay.
And off to York he went. So I think that's where the bloodline comes from.
Oh, Antonio was his brother's name, right?
Yep.
Did Antonio also change the Evangelist, or is Antonio still Antonio Evangelista?
I don't know. I should have looked him up.
Oh.
But I'm tired. I'm traveling this week.
I was just trying to get a little more thread to the giver of this story.
I know, but too much. It was too much for me traveling this week, so I didn't dig too far.
You're forgiven. But listen, you just said that we're gonna have 2 more murders on the same avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Do they involve children as well, Trace?
No, I don't believe so. Women, and involved women.
I don't even know if I want to trust you anymore when you tell me things like this.
I know, you're just gonna have to roll with it.
All right.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. It was another great episode on Malice in the Mitten. Don't forget to come back to Round Robin on Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.